says recording the
leaders, outside the box thinkers, innovators, so you can learn from their methods of development. Well, you tuned into the right show. Today, Trent Mongero of Dirt Bras Baseball and Winning Baseball Academy, along with Nate Trosky of Trosky Baseball. Listen, both of these guys are at the top of their industry because the one thing they do is give back to the game, and they've created a friendship of sharing their baseball schools, their books, their videos, and speaking all over the country. Hello, everybody. Pete Caliendo, USA Baseball, USA and around the world. Listen, I want to welcome all our guests. It's time for Baseball Outside the Box, the show that loves to interview baseball's best coaching minds who love to challenge the status quo. Listen, today we dive deep into baseball development with two of the best in the business. They have separate programs, but they work together and are great friends. So let's welcome, first of all, our newcomer to the show, but not second to anyone, Nate Trosky. Welcome, Nate. How you doing, buddy?
Peter, I'm doing good, Peter. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm honored and looking forward to it.
Now, the honor's mine, man. You guys don't need the promotion. I need it. That's why I got to have great guests so people, listen to the show. So I appreciate you being on the show and returning a favorite to Baseball Outside the Box, the Italian stallion, Trent Mongero. What's up, buddy? How are you, Trent?
Hey, Pete. So glad to be on with you and Nate. What an honor.
Hey, are you kidding? Listen, to have both of you guys on, Skype might blow up. So the audience knows if it blows, you will come right back and continue the show because this you guys got a lot of explosive stuff to say. But I want to do is start with Nate. Nate, this is probably the toughest question you're going to get. And you're outnumbered here because you got two Italians on the show. So I got to ask you, like I asked Tim Corbin, somewhere in your history, there's got to be Italian somewhere.
No, I don't think so.
We're going to do our homework because some great coaches are Italian, but I do know that you've traveled the world, and you've also got a great honor in Germany, which was Coach of the Year. But, beyond that, both of you guys, are Hall of Famers in everybody's mind. You guys are great, and we're not going to waste any time. Let's get started right away, and let's talk about.
Peter, I coached in Italy for the Olympics. Yeah, in 1998, I coached the Olympic trials in Bologna, Italy. So I have coached in Italy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. And I thought there was a connection. I knew that you did something in Italy.
So I coached the Olympic trials. The 1998 Olympic trials was the last Olympic trials for baseball. And I was with the German national team. We played the Dutch. We played the Italians. We played the Russians. We played you name it, we played them, and I don't think we won one game, but it was an incredible experience, and that was the last of the Olympic trials for baseball because that was the last time baseball was enter into the Olympics, and then now I believe it's back. It's supposed to be back, right? I believe it's going to be back in Japan.
Back in Japan next year.
I also played music, so I used to go over to Italy and do music conventions. I used to be they have a huge Christian music convention there in Italy. So I played some music and sang and lead guitar and all kinds of cool stuff in Italy. So I've been to Italy several times. Good times.
So you're Italian then. He's by default.
We just got to change the last part. Instead of a Y, we'll put an I. How's that?
Yeah, let's do it. Trosco, baby.
Trosco, that's even better. Hey, listen, Trent. I want you to obviously mention because your background a little bit when it comes to the development of the game. Give us a little background, real quick.
Just real quick. I mean, I'm 28 years high school coach by choice. Travel the country, do clinics, camps. Nate and I work together doing camps. Of course, we'll talk more about that later, possibly. And then just been a student of the game. Wrote a couple books about 15 years ago that did real well, and just trying to learn, trying to give back. That's really a quick synopsis.
Absolutely. No, fantastic. And all the stuff's going to be on the show notes and everything, all your bios and all that. But again, people know you so well. Let's start right away, and you can both answer the question. And if you choose not to, that's fine. We'll go to the next one. And we may have some people. We got a lot of people on Facebook right now. If you're on Facebook Live, welcome, U.S. and around the world. We're glad you joined us on Baseball Outside the Box. Let me start with, let's go with Nate. The biggest question nowadays, we all know it. Everybody's indoors, and you guys are experts. I've seen a lot of your stuff on Twitter. We're going to tell the folks about your Twitter also. You guys are exploding Twitter. Things that young people now that can do indoors, what they should really be doing indoors to prepare for themselves, whether it be mentally or physically or both. So that way, if the season opens, because that could be high school or it could be travel ball, it could be all kinds of levels.
Right. So there's many different components to learning. There's different stages, and the stage that most players take part in. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
So the stage that most players take part in is almost the final stage. I mean, to become a good hitter, you need to hit. You need to hit baseballs that are coming at you. That's like the final stage before you get into a game. Well, what most players do is they go to the final stage, they go to the park and they hit baseballs, which is great. But what about all the stages that lead up to the final stage? So you have stages of the swing, stages of your approach, stages of getting your mind right, just even entering the box. Do you practice your in-box routine? Do you have a routine to find your swing? The different components, do you have checkpoints? So, you can kind of break it down. And what I love to do with the game of, the fundamentals, the skills of the game is going to the beginning stages. And it's kind of like, before you learn to steal bases, you have to go all the way back to the beginning stage, which would be learning how to walk. And when you learn how to walk, then you learn how to jog. It's just this progression. As a child, you're progressing into this final stage. Now you're 10 years old and you stole your first base. Well, what most people do when they're trying to develop this game is they go to the final. I want to learn how to steal bases, so that I just practice stealing bases. Well, let's go back to the beginning. Let's really talk specifically about how do you take a lead? How do you take a lead? What is your stance in your lead? What are your focus points? What is your mindset? How's your first step? What's your line of direction? You could just break down every component to learning. So something that I've done over the years, and I don't know necessarily if it was introduced to me. I think it's just the way my mind works, where if I want to be the master of something, I need to go to stage one. And I need to be the master of one, then two, then three, then four. And I work my way up to get to the final, then I'm always working backwards. So I know what I want for my final result. So if a hitter wants to be a great hitter, right, the final result is get in the game and get hits, hit rockets, So, but we focus on that versus focus on the process. So if I'm not great at the process, I'm never going to really be great at the result. So breaking down, so from the swing side, just for example, these guys all have bats, and the greatest hitter of all time. I mean, we can ask these, our listeners, who is the greatest hitter of all time, and that's very debatable. But it's very obvious too. Who can be, one of the top runner-ups or candidates would be, Pete Rose. Some would say he is the greatest. I would say he's arguably the greatest. He's got to be at least top 1, 2, or 3, and maybe he's number 1. I think Aaron is the greatest hitter of all time because he had the most extra base hits. He had the most RBIs. He had the most home runs before Barry Bonds, and he had the most total bases. And Hank Aaron's a 5-tool player. So in my eyes, Hank Aaron's the best. But Pete Rose, in my eyes, would be number 2. Pete Rose swung his bat every night, and he didn't hit a ball. He's just swinging. He's working on inside, outside, high, low. He would swing a heavy bat. So now he's the greatest, and he's doing all these dry swings. So breaking it down to, let's work on our lower half. Let's find our lower half. Let's find our stride. Let's find our separation. Let's find our launch. Let's find our connection. Let's find our contact point. Let's find our finish. So you can break each stage down and just work on those stages at your house. So there's never enough time, ever. And the creative mind is the mind that actually is going to continue to move. But what happens is, especially in today's world, is we sit and we wait for people to tell us what to do. And my idea as a coach would be, if you want to be a great player, you have to learn to be a great player by coaching yourself. And you can do that at your house. Pick up a bat, look in a mirror, look at a Hank Aaron video, watch Pete Rose video, watch a Derek Jeter video, watch someone that you admire. And then you can just look at their swing and go, I want to emulate, because emulation, I know Trent remembers too, emulation was huge. That's one of the greatest ways to learn is through How do you say it?
Emulate. Yeah.
Emulation. And emulation comes from vision. Vision goes to the brain, you process. So you learn through sight, through emulation. And very few people learn that way today. I'm going to go to my hitting guy and he's going to teach me how to hit. And the greatest way to learn is by emulation and by doing. So it's seeing and doing. Seeing triggers the eyes, doing triggers a feeling. So we need to go back in time and say, how did the best learn to hit? They learn from emulation, they learn by actually doing. So break down your mechanics, hitting, pitching, fielding, and have a blast. Be creative. And don't worry about someone telling you exactly how to do it, but watch. Say, how's Brandon Crawford fielding that backhand? You could pause it on YouTube and you can literally just hold in that posture for 30 seconds and see how many times you can do that in 5 minutes. And you know what's going to happen now when someone rolls you a ball? Your body's going to learn memory. So it's endless. It is absolutely endless. The creative mind, and we need to promote the creative mind. And so, yeah, so those are some few things. I mean, it's endless.
And, Nate, you mentioned, I saw on your Twitter, I want people to go to the Twitter, Trosky Baseball, and then also at Coach Mongero. Both Twitters got unbelievable. If you're not sure what to do at home, they put a lot of stuff on their Twitter that you can follow what to do. But what's interesting, Nate, and I'm going to go to Trent now, but what's interesting, I read you talk about the mind out of sequence. If that's out of sequence, nothing else works. And we tend to work in the opposite. We want to do the work first before the mind can do it. So that's awesome, man. Trent, the ball's in your court.
Well, Nate and I talk all the time about this kind of stuff that, really there's different types of training and most people want to be great, but they're not willing to pay the price, right? We talk about that all the time. So what is the price? The price is a daily routine of things that matter. Okay. And you have to focus on the things that matter. And you have to be creative. Everybody wants a baseball field. Everybody wants baseballs. Everybody wants bats and gloves. You don't need any of that stuff to get better. And, but then it comes back to what Nate touched on. What do you do? And how do you do it? And when do you do it? So even people that have great intentions and are willing to put in the work don't really know what to do other than what Nate mentioned. Go take a couple swings, go take some ground balls, throw, play catch. And they don't ever really push themselves. So the part of the training that I want to talk about from a developmental standpoint is when you learn the basics, then you eventually have to you really have to train at a higher level, okay? So once you have the basics, you should literally be pushing yourself to a point where you're on the fringe of failure, because when you're on the fringe of failure, you're gonna be as heightened as you can be in your focus, your concentration, and your skill work. And when you do that day after day, you eventually can take your training to a level, Pete, where you're actually training at a higher level than what you would need in the game. Well, how do you build confidence? That's what people always talk about. How do you build confidence? And people say, well, I don't know. They have all these ways. Well, how you do it is you train at a higher level than what you need to do in a game. And when you can do that successfully, I would argue that you have confidence. So not to beat a dead horse, I think Nate touched on a lot of it, but certainly, one of the things that we've tried to do is provide a plan for people, for players, for parents, literally that encompasses all areas of the game, because we understand as teachers of the game that people have great intent, but they just don't know what to do.
On that, we get a Mark Fuller from Wisconsin, Hall of Fame coach there, asked on Facebook, and we may jump ahead a little bit and come back, and that's okay. I'd like to take some questions too. When it comes to, we're talking about the hitting or anything, the visualization, the visual drills, how much do you guys use that in all your drills? Is it consistent? And maybe some ideas of some drills, especially if you're talking about taking it to another level.
Go ahead, Nate. That's
Sorry,
Nate. I think Trent. So about maybe a month ago, Trent had an idea of, and I don't think it exists. I really don't. We have all these baseball guys, and we're all running around. But what Trent and I have kind of, part of our mission, because he was talking about first you learn the fundamentals, and then you just take it to another level. So everything's layered and everything's, we learn in stages. So we're at a stage, we've been coaching, we're both about the same age, we've been coaching a long time. We've been around some unbelievable coaches. We've learned so much through our experience. And now we're at a place where we see things differently. Your vision changes as you get older. You see things completely different that you couldn't even see when you're 35, and you can't even get there. So our vision is at a whole other place. And what we see in our vision is it's like, wow, there's so many deficiencies. And it's this dysfunctional cycle that does not stop. It's this hamster on the wheel, and it's just spinning. And I think one thing that I've learned, because I go all over the world. I've coached in South Africa, Japan, China, Dominican, I have 25 countries. What you see it's a problem across the whole world. It's just this dysfunction. But there's other countries that do things better in certain areas. So I've had an opportunity to get out of our box, because we're in this box of our function. Whatever our function is, to me, it's very dysfunctional. Now, there's a lot of really good things that we do here in America in baseball. So don't get me wrong, I think it's amazing, but I think we're missing, like if you had a pie, there's like this maybe 20% that's being neglected. It's very dysfunctional, and it's this ongoing cycle. When you go to the Dominican, I've been coaching for 15 years in the Dominican Republic, you see what they do well. And they have a pie too, and they do some things amazing, and they leave other things left undone as well. So coming back and spending the years in the DR and all over the world, and being amongst the best of the best, and being in college baseball, professional baseball, working as a scout, doing all these things, and training players and working with academies, you see this disparity of completeness in the development of a player. There's this empty spot. So Trent brought up the idea, and these are some components that we've been working on, I think, individually in different areas, but he said, hey, we need to come up with a plan right now that is complete, that basically tells you when you get out of bed what to do. It says, okay, today, and especially when you're in the lockdown right now, you can't really go anywhere. So it says, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Now, when you think of player development, you think of the complete player, and that's one of the biggest dysfunctions in American training. They don't develop the complete player. They go hit. They have a cage in their backyard. That's awesome. But there's 5 physical tools, and there's 1 mental tool, which is the 6th tool. It's the mental makeup and the character of a player, which ultimately defines who you will be as a 5-tool player, because your 5 tools are relying on the 6th tool of self-motivation, self-discipline, and those components of self-mastery. So the 6th tool literally defines, but what we do is we don't even pay attention to the 6th tool. We go in the backyard and we just take hacks. And we hack and we hack and we hack. And you know what we get really good at? We get really good at not having a game plan, okay? Not knowing how to get our minds right. Okay? We get really good at being hackers and not hitters. You can't even find a good hitter. If you go state to state, there's like 5 in every state, a guy who can really hit. We just go on batting cages and we just have the mindless swings, swing, 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 hit more, hit more. That's like half of one of the tools. That's what most Americans spend the majority of their time doing, because it's convenient and it's easy. What are your lead ups? What do you lead up to getting your game swings in the cage? What do you do? And when you have a tee, what do you do on the tee? And it's not rocket science. When you see a major leaguer or any successful hitter at a higher level, college major, he has a simple plan. He starts with high tee, no stride, hits it the other way. And then he might go top hat. Whatever he does, he has a routine and a plan. He leads into the final stage. So Trent said, hey, Nate, we need to complete this. We have all these videos we've made over the years. Why don't we just throw them all together? I'll put together the format. And he did an unbelievable job. So Trent could talk a little bit about that. But that was kind of filling a missing link. And what's exciting about working with Trent is that he's on a mission. I'm on a mission. We both are like-minded. We love people. We love the game. We love making a difference. And we see that there's areas that the game can do better. You know, there's areas we can be better at. And we're seeking, when we have 25 years left, Big Trent, you know,
Yep.
we're late 40s. We're going, hey, maybe we're going 30 years. I'm going till I'm 110. I'm still out there making plays right now. So I'm going till I'm 110. So we got about 50 years to get after it. And we're gonna accomplish things that have never been accomplished, because we're looking to the deficiencies, and we're gonna say we're gonna bring what the game needs. Not just another tournament. Not another. Oh, we don't want more tournaments. Trent's not gonna go run tournaments. Okay, there's enough tournaments. There's too many tournaments. There's too many showcases. There's too much of everything that doesn't really matter. So Trent, you wanna go, Big Trent?
Keep it rolling.
Yeah, no, I mean, my buddy Steve Springer says it all the time. There's only like 15 DHs in the world or something, so you better learn how to play defense. And one of the major deficiencies is a defensive deficiency. And, the best players, they take ground balls. The rest of the guys, unless they're in a practice setting, they're probably not even taking ground balls. They're not doing drill work. I think it's been promoted a lot more through Kai and a lot of the other guys, ourselves, a wall, a ball, and getting things done. But, the part that I want to talk about, Pete, is the ages. Okay, everybody looks to high school. Everybody looks to high school and college for development. Well, the fact of the matter is, the vast majority of the time, development gets less the higher you get. It's like everybody expects you to know things already. Now, there's exceptions to the rule, but if at the major Division I level, they're expecting you to already know how to play, and they're going to be recruiting over top of you, and you're going to learn some team game. But when it comes to the fundamental skills of the game, we're missing the boat if we're not 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, really learning how to play, right? And then there's learning the physical skills, which is critical. And then there's learning the game skills, first and thirds, rundowns, cutoff relays, bunt defenses, picks, base running, okay, stealing, da-da-da-da. I mean, the list goes on and on. Who's learning that stuff? Well, to me, if you don't have your fundamental core skills at a super high level, it's going to be impossible to implement the team game. They go hand in hand. So the youth level, developing your body properly, your core strength properly, your footwork properly, your throwing properly. And it's not a microwave thing. It's not going to be fast food overnight, work on it one day, here it is. That's unrealistic. But I can tell you as a high school coach, because this is the level that I chose as opposed to college or pro, is we are getting players, Pete, that are so much more deficient now than when I first got in this 28 years ago. And they talked about the cycle. So here's the cycle. You only can teach and do what you know. You can only teach and do what you know. So if you're not trained around a coach that really tries to develop, or a dad or mom who really helps you, then when it's your turn to start giving back, you can only give back what you've been exposed to, which makes these podcasts and others in the ABCA convention, everything so important to all of us to continue learning. But the developmental aspect the boat is being missed. Nate has talked about it. They're playing games. And here's what happens, okay? And I'll turn it back over to you. I saw it with my own son, okay? It's hard to stay on top of your game when you're just playing games. What? You get one, he's a shortstop, so you get 3 ground balls maybe one day, one the next, you get your at-bats. You can't stay sharp that way. But that's what people do. They just play. In fact, the confidence, you start making mistakes and you're not working outside of the games, where's that confidence going to come from? And I would argue that it's going to erode and you're going to get sloppy. And what do we see in the summertime at the high school levels, at these showcases? Sloppy, lazy baseball. That's what we see the vast majority of the time. There's always exceptions.
Yes,
but that's what we see. So I'll end that thought there so we can move on to the next question.
And that reminds me, I'm older than you guys, so that reminds me, when I started, I went to Mickey Owen Baseball School, and we in our days we had a lot of baseball schools, good or bad. But there was a lot of training going on at those times, and I think we had better players because of that. Now, technology, science, a lot of things, innovation. Like, you guys are very innovative. When you look at your drills online, these aren't things you copied off of somebody else only. You invented some of this stuff, a lot of it. You developed it. You thought through all this. So my question is, for a lot of our coaches, if you take a particular skill, Nate, where do you start? And as you go through training that skill, because everybody's an individual, it's, how do you make the adjustments? That's not easy for a coach to identify what adjustments they need to make, or the player needs to make, according to how they feel.
I think that first it begins really with your athleticism. It begins with your athleticism. So, like, if you take someone who has very minimal athleticism and you say, hey, go throw the ball off a wall and I want you to make plays, it's going to, the result will be completely different if you take a high-level athlete, an average athlete, and a below-average athlete. So let's say below average, good, great, elite. So you have these different tiers of athletes. So everybody's going to learn the same skill, but it's going to look different. So what happens is I take my son, and he's an average athlete at best. When you take Trent's kid, and you go, man, he's an elite athlete. You know, he could jump higher, he runs faster, he has better balance. He has all these components, agility. It's just there, right? It's who he is. So you watch Trent's son, and I'm going, why doesn't my son look like Trent? Trent's son's doing the exact same stuff. So we always need to remember that we're not measuring, why doesn't my son look like that guy? Well, he isn't that guy. And this isn't rocket science. It really isn't. It's simplicity. So the wall ball concept, I've been going to the DR for 15 years. And when I went to the DR in the beginning, there was no cell phones. No cell phone. It was very, very, very interesting. And the reason why it's so interesting is I've been going to the same town, same city for 15 years every year. So I've seen kids go from 5 years old to 20. That doesn't happen. I've seen the same kids in the same village, okay, hundreds of them, go from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20. I go now and they're working at the hotel. They're selling fruit on the corner. They're working in the laundromat. Okay? So they're like, hey, they know my name and they know my face. They don't speak English, but I see them all over the place because I've seen them since they've been 5. When they were 5 years old, 10, starting to go into the 15-year age, this little window was their window of development because they don't have distractions. Now in America, we have the most distractions when you're about 15. Once you get 15, it's like game over. Really, for your player development window, it's very difficult. And I don't want to discourage you saying it's over. Well, it's not over, but it means you did not take advantage of this little window. The greatest window of development is going to go from about 6 to about 14. That's where you really, like Curt Schilling, and you say, hey, Curt, who is the coach in your life that had the greatest impact? Who does he say? He didn't say my college coach. He says my Little League coach. When I was 12, he taught me how to compete. He taught me that changeup. And then you know what Curt did when he was 12? He threw that changeup probably 400 times a day. But once he turned 15, he didn't throw it anymore. You know why? Because he didn't have time. Now he's thinking about college and studying for the SATs and girls and get my license, right? There's all these issues. There's all these issues and busyness and all these extra components. Look like what we do is take a look at your brain. Got all kinds of stuff there. Anyway, so when you think it,
technology
that's right, baby. I don't technically know. I don't know Curt Schilling, but I remember listening to him speak, and he said the coach that had the greatest impact was my Little League coach. Now let me just tell you, he's not the only big leaguer that will say that. It's like the majority. It's this little window when your mind is open and you have nothing but time. So think, Curt Schilling throws his changeup between the ages of 10 when he learned it till he was 15. He probably threw it 500,000 times. Then when he gets to 15-year-old, he only probably throws it like 50 times a week. How come? Because of distractions, the busyness, life changes. So we have this window, and we need to take advantage. So in the Dominican, what you see is these kids starting to get phones. They have phones now. They all do. And you know what they do? They sit on a bucket. They sit in the stands now. Now, for the first 10 years, every Dominican's on the field either hitting a cap, hitting a rock, hitting a ball, or throwing a ball off the wall, which you don't see anywhere in America, but you would see that in America in the 1910s, 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. As technology becomes a part of your society and your culture, what happens is you lose sight of what matters. Baseball is a game of timing, rhythm, feel. It's a game of feel. And how do you learn feel? By doing. By playing wiffle ball in the backyard is how you learn how to pitch and how you learn how to hit. You don't learn how to hit by hitting the tee in a batting cage with a guy telling you to do all these things right. The body will organize itself. When your mind is focused, present, confident, and relaxed, the body literally will organize itself to accomplish the goal. So my goal is to hit a line drive up the middle And my dad's throwing rockets at me like Mickey Mantle's dad used to do. He's throwing bullets at 40 feet away against the side of the barn, and Mickey has to figure it out. He's got to get his foot down on time. He has to swing with his lower half. He has to get some separation. Or what happens is he won't have any success. Mickey Mantle's dad didn't know what he was doing. All he did was overspeed training. He said, Mick, let's go. I'm going to strike you out for an hour every night. Him and Grandpa, right-handed, left-handed. And Mickey's swing found its way through the challenge, through the reps, through feel, by the highest number of reps, game speed, game challenge, someone trying to get you out. Now, obviously, Mickey is the elite of elite athletes. So it's not going to look the same when you're in the backyard trying to strike your kid out for 6 months than it is Mickey Mantle, because his body will organize itself to perfection. And the level of the athlete, your body will organize itself according to the level of your athleticism. And that's why everybody's not supposed to be a Division I athlete. And everyone's not supposed to play in the minor leagues. And everybody's not supposed to be a big leaguer. You weren't even designed and created to be that way. And the spots are limited. There's only so many spots. Well, it's like that for a reason, because there's only so many talented players. So, hey, Trent and I are about reaching your ceiling. Whatever is important to you, let's make it important. If you want to be a great player, we're going to show you how. If you want to be an average player, you can do that on your own. You don't need us. Okay, there's mediocrity everywhere. So just hang out on your couch, play your video game for 2 hours a day, okay, and go play catch maybe 2 days a week at 40 feet, 60 feet, and go hit in your cage for a couple hours during the week. Well, you're going to be very average. And if that's what you want, that's fine. But just decide what's important to you, and that's your intention. So we got to get to the heart of all of our kids. Kids 10 years old, you want to be a really good player, son? We need to go out and play wiffle ball. It's not about going and getting another lesson and watching every hitting guru on Twitter telling you how to swing. That's actually the worst approach. Griffey was asked, they said, Griffey, if you're going to teach, this was for Ken. I remember when Ken was like 40, they go, Ken, when you're a father, how are you going to teach your kid how to hit? What do you think he said, Peter? What do you think he said?
Go out and hit.
He said, I'm not going to tell him nothing. I'm going to let him have fun. And I'm going to let his body work. And he's just going to go out and hit. Now, when he gets maybe into a certain age, then I'm going to start saying, hey, let's work some balance now. But it's all about the love and the appreciation of the game. Dave Esker is the head coach at Stanford University. He was at Cal. He was at Cal for years. He's a College World Series shortstop for Stanford when he was a player. He's the head coach at Stanford right now. He's a very good friend of mine. He's got a son right now that's in the kind of high school age of, trying to find his place in the game. I said, Dave, Dave goes, Nate, I watch all your stuff. He goes, on the Dominican, all that stuff. I watch it all, caps. He goes, Nate, can you get caps for the Stanford Cardinal, for our baseball team? So I was in the DR and I brought him back this big old sack of caps. And I got him just some sticks, and I made these pieces, and I just put some tape around them. And I said, Dave, I dropped them off. I said, Dave, this is for the Stanford Cardinals baseball team. He said, thank you. They're out there hitting caps now, because Dave is old school as a guest now. I go, Dave, what do you do when you hit with your kid? He goes, you know what I do when I hit with my kid? I put earphones on, and I listen to music, and I don't say one thing. And I just fire balls at him. This is a College World Series shortstop, world series champion, one of the best coaches in the country. And when he's throwing BP to his son, he's keeping his mouth what? Shut. So there's a place to speak. There's a time to speak. There's a time and place to speak. But there's also a time and place to let your athlete enjoy what he's doing and figuring it out by feel, by doing, by rhythm. And when you get in the way, you do not allow the athlete to learn at the next level, because we're always interrupting. Go ahead, Trent.
Love it.
That was a thumbs up.
I love it. Before you go, I love it because of the fact that one of the things that you talk about, and I want Trent to talk about this, we're looking at a society where, like you said, they're playing a lot of games, they're practicing, they got private lessons, they're overloaded and all this stuff. There's not a lot of natural, body movement going on, a lot of learning on their own. Nate talked about windows of trainability. Those windows, if you look, the majority of players in the old days were multi-sport athletes. I know we've talked about this on the show before. A lot of kids aren't playing other sports, aren't going on their own, doing their own thing. And the other thing is, even a question here from Chad Montez, as you're working on a drill, some kids may not have the strength to do certain things. They may be a little weaker. So we have to identify that also. Can you speak about all that?
You want me to go? Yeah. So really, strength is a factor in some things, but you can generally modify almost everything down. So if the bat's too heavy, you use a dowel. If a dowel's too heavy, you get a PVC pipe. I mean, you can. I really believe, and the older I've gotten, the more I've changed, because I used to think that young players, 7, 8, 9 years old, can't learn things like a college player, can't perform like a college player. That was my take on things. Like, you had to build them up to that, and I don't feel that way anymore. I
I agree.
I do feel like strength is a factor, yes. Okay, but at the same time, you can modify. Okay. And one of the beautiful things about coaching, and one of the things that intimidates parents, is being able to discern what is appropriate for, and make adjustments. So Nate talked about the different tiers of an athlete, okay, different levels that people are on. Well, you may have to simplify for a lesser athlete for them to get their confidence. Like, you're not going to go into a cage with a low level athlete and sit there and challenge them immediately by throwing them, balls they can't hit. That's no fun. They're not going to have any fun. So you have to have a strategy to build them up to that. And that's what coaching really is, understanding where your athletes are at, and they all need something different. It's not just a blanket, it's not a cookie cutter system. So,
Mhm.
strength it's all about functional strength. So in our program, that the blue collar lockdown, you'll see that Nate actually handled most of that, and we did everything with body weight. We did core strength, upper body strength, lower body strength, all body weight type movements that are functional for baseball. Every person, every player at every age can tackle that kind of stuff. Now, they may only be able to do a small part of it at first, and once they master that, they add on more. But Pete, you know, any athlete can do that, and when their functional strength improves, their performance and their ability to handle different types of drills are going to improve. But you never want to give somebody so much that they're doomed to failure. So you have to build them up. Now, the better they are, the more confident they are, and you express to them, hey, all right, we've done the basic stuff. Now we're getting ready to challenge you a little bit. Verbally let them know, like, this is the time when you're going to be challenged, because there's a time and place for it. So you don't want to go into a training setting and the kid's not ready, the young man, the young lady, and you just challenge them to death and they're in misery the whole time. That nobody wants that. That's not any fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, you build them up, you get them stronger, they work on their strength. That you modify drills, you eliminate certain drills, you add other drills, and as they get better, confidence improves, strength improves, then you keep adding to it. You can always make any drill tougher, but is it still functional as a drill? I mean, drills, right? Drills are not, everybody wants this pie in the sky, like one size fits all magic drill that's going to make you the best player ever. Doesn't exist. That does not exist, people. Okay? It's all about the basic fundamentals over and over and over, getting a feel. Like, so I want to go back and touch on Nate's point again. Like, when you're a hitter at the highest levels, you become your own best coach. Okay? You can't run in the dugout and go to your manager and probe, hey, hitting coach, what I do wrong on that one? And what I do wrong, and what mechanically did I do wrong here? You have to figure things out, and over time you become your own best coach. So that's why when, like, the Stanford coach is working with his son, or I'm working with my son, okay, or Nate's working with Jabin, or his other nephews, Rowan and Jabin, we're going to let them have some failure and not try to fix every swing and constantly throw these darts at them of, is Nate talking?
Low battery.
Oh, somebody's got
No.
Nate's back. I think he's got low battery.
Nate, you got low
Well,
battery.
I
You might plug in.
have a new computer. I have a new computer, and it actually talks to you. It tells you when your
Nice.
battery's low.
So plug it in,
It was
baby.
saying, "Hey, get your mind."
Hey, on that, please don't tell me that in the future computers are going to teach players. So if you're saying that.
They will. They will teach players. I guarantee you they will. because in the scouting world, scouts are being eliminated before your eyes. So the scouts continue to be eliminated because robots are now determining who are the players. Robots and numbers and metrics. So yeah, it's going to happen very soon.
That worries me.
There will be, and it does. But I also think that there could be a tremendous benefit behind it, because if you could, I mean, I haven't even thought about it till right now, but like, if you can find ways to be at your house where, let's just say there's 5 checkpoints an infielder needs to have. Let's just say we'll go checkpoint number 1, watch the ball in your glove. I mean, I'm just making this up right now, but this could be the newest thing that we're going to design right now, because it's actually pretty smart. Think about it. You go 5 absolutes. There's not a lot of absolutes to anything, but there are some. Okay, so there's checkpoints. So you look at a hitter in his launch position, there's some checkpoints. But there's differences between, some guys say, hey, knees between your feet. Well, look at everybody's knees. They're not all between their feet. Some guys are bow-legged, right? Some guys have, tight hips, and their hips are, there's so many variances. So when you think about this, 5 checkpoints that an infielder has to have. Number one is you have to watch the ball in you, right? Well, how many guys actually watch the ball? And it's a little bit more of an exaggeration, because you can't really make how much of an adjustment can you make? It's like a hitter. You can't make an adjustment. They say, 15 feet when the ball's out in front. So can you really make an adjustment when the ball's like 5 feet from your glove? Well, I never really thought about it till now, but when the ball is hit on the ground hard, it's going faster than a baseball being pitched. So if I'm feeling a ground ball, it could be going 120 miles an hour. You're not facing 120 on the mound. So really watching it, and it's more of an exaggeration but it's teaching you the concept of seeing the ball, as long as you can. So think about it. If you have a program that's your son, it videos your son, and it tells you if the 5 checkpoints are in check. We're just creating it right now, because we probably are going to make it. It's unreal. Think about it. How many kids watch their glove? How many kids feel with their hands out in front? How many kids feel with proper posture? Well, you could say probably half of them don't. Maybe 80% don't. Maybe 30%. But if you can go through all 5 checkpoints with literally just a program on your phone, and I'm filming your son right now, you're rolling him ground balls, and it goes zzz, it buzzes on checkpoint 3 because you didn't watch it in your glove, or your hands were too deep, right?
That's so good,
right? Or you're fielding without momentum, so we've already created it right now. Brian will design it, because we have a guy who's a computer engineer, but we're working on some amazing stuff, Trent and I, with infield. Stuff that I can't even talk about, stuff that's never even been thought about. And it's so beyond, but it's so simple. And it's really interesting, because the masters, when someone comes up with a brilliant idea, you say, that is such a brilliant idea. Why didn't I think of it? Yeah. Why didn't you think of it? Why? Because brilliance, we're so caught up with this busyness in our head. Our mind doesn't even have the freedom to think, because we're so clogged down and cluttered with busyness and responsibilities and what I have to do and expectations. If you literally can slow down, breathe, relax, have faith, and release and receive what God is going to give you in your life, and you can literally slow down. You know what happens? Your mind is the greatest problem solver and inventor in the world, but we don't even give our mind a shot. So we're coming out with some stuff. I'm just letting you guys know that is so beyond. It's so awesome, but it's going. Anyways, I don't want to keep talking about that, but I do want to talk about some of the other stuff that Trent was talking about when the time is right. I was taking some notes.
And I cut Trent off. So Trent, I'm going to let you continue. And I just wanted to mention, I can't remember, Nate, how many things I look back at things that I said, hey, I need to do it this way. It's different. It's better. But I didn't follow through on it. That's the key. If you need to follow, and that's important. Trent, we were talking about that, and I cut you off. Continue to talk about what you were talking about earlier also.
What point, Pete? Which point?
I think he was done.
I was done.
He was on.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I cut you off.
I want to talk about a couple of things that he was talking about. When you're talking about strength, so I was a college coach in 1998. I was a head college coach. And I said, there's so many deficiencies in this game that are not being addressed. This was 22 years ago. I said, I'm out. I'm done. I coached as a head coach, as a college coach for 1 year, and I said, game over. Because there's areas that need to be developed. So I stepped out and said, hey, here we go. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to dedicate my life to finding ways to overcome these deficiencies. So My point. Oh, so then I started scouting part-time for 15 years. And when you're at different levels, you see different things. High school coaches or college coaches don't see necessarily what the scout sees because they're not a scout. Their experience is different. The high school coach works with high school players the majority of the time. But he has pro guys, like Trent has pro guys coming in. He's got big leaguers coming in. He's got all these different relationships. So his experience is a little different than most high school coaches. But your experience is what you're a part of. So being a scout and being in that world of the area codes and the scouting world, you start paying attention to tools. Tools become like number one, because as a scout, what you do is you draft tools, the 5 tools plus the 6 tool. You're not so concerned about performance. You're concerned about tools. And see, the world that the average world, the common world, the amateur world doesn't understand that. They go, hey, my kid was all league. He batted .420. Why didn't he get drafted? Because he's got no tool. He has no tools. Or he's got below average tool. He has average tools. He has 1 tool. Or he has 1.5 tools. The pro world is not really necessarily scouting tools. Skill and performance. Results and performance. We're looking more for projection. Now, yeah, we do care if you can't hit at all. I mean, and you can run and throw fast. You can run fast so hard. We're not necessarily going to be on you because you can't even hit the ball. But so we go to the tools. So I started spending all this time on the tools. I'm going, you can measure the tools, but how do you measure the 6 tool? But when you think of just the 5 tools, I would ask every kid that wants to play at a high level, if you want to play at a high level, if you don't know the tools like you know your name. So I say, Pete, what's your name? What's your name, Pete?
Pete Caliendo.
Did you have to think about it, Pete? Did you have to think about it?
Absolutely not.
No, it's unconscious. It's unconscious because you've said it a million times. You know who you are. Well, not only do you need to know who you are, you need to know who you want to become. And when you think of a baseball player, you say, what are the 5 tools? They can't even tell you. They'll go, well, let me think about it. My dad told me there's a run tool. That's what you're being graded on. They're focusing on winning trophies. In the Dominican, they don't even win trophies because 1, they don't have trophies. 2, they don't even play in tournaments. Half the kids, they don't even play in tournaments. And what we're focused on is winning trophies. They're focused on the trophy is the tool. So they get up every morning. Our trainer at our academy in the Dominican, his name is Andreas Duncan. He has 5 brothers. All of them were drafted. His older brother was the dominant pitcher in the big leagues for years. He played he played like 18 years. In professional baseball. Andreas, he's our main trainer in the Dominican. We have a Trosky Academy. And he told me 3 months ago, I was there and I said, Andreas, tell me about your experience. Because we're trying to work the run tool. I mean, Trent's son, shortstop, my nephew, shortstop. Hey, the run tool is important. It's important for every position, by the way. You don't have to be a plus runner, but you need to be an athlete. You need to be you need to get better. You need to advance your speed. So I asked Andreas, Andreas, tell me about your experience. He goes, Nate, everybody in my family was drafted. He goes, we're all 6'2" to 6'4" runners. 6'2" to 6'4". Those guys are like world-class runners. That's the fastest in the game. That's a Trey Turner. That's a Mike Trout. That's a Ichiro. That's the fastest the game knows, okay? His whole family, 5 of them, all of them. And I say, what'd you guys do to get so fast? He says, my father would wake us up at 5 a.m. every day, and we'd go down to the beach, and we'd run sprints in the sand. How do you get fast? By doing what? Running with resistance. Run often. Get stronger with resistance. Now, how many kids in America, so we're talking about being strong, okay? How many kids in America, I mean, literally, it's this simple. Where is the hill by your house? You need to find a hill because you need to find resistance. Their resistance was the sand. They call it the Alta. In the DR, they got the Alta. They find a hill and they run in the sand. That's 2 forms of resistance. They don't have form coaches. They don't have technique. They just run the hill as fast as they can with resistance. Now, go in your room and go do wall sits against the wall. Do that 4 nights a week. Run sprints with resistance at max speed. Have someone time you so that you don't give less than your best. If your son right now went and ran hills, it could be a 30-yard hill. It can be a 50-yard hill. It doesn't have to be like we're not talking long distance. Burst. Run burst with resistance, do your wall sits, do some jump ropes. And if you don't have a jump rope, just jump. Jump for like 5 minutes. Just jump. Just jump. You know what happened to your athleticism? It's through the roof. You're going, what happened to that kid? And now this is simplicity. Now, when you look at the 5 tools, 2 of the tools require almost no strength. And it's a beautiful thing. Can you tell me which tools, Pete? Which tools require no strength? Now, real quick, before I ask that question, if you ask the kids, what are the 5 tools? What are you being graded on? They don't even know. They go, I got a tournament next week, though, coach. I'm going to the tournament. And they're all trying to get scholarships, and they all want to sign, but they don't even know how they're being evaluated. And they need to know it like they know their name, Pete. Well, in the DR, the kids know it. At 10 years old, they know the run tool is like, every kid in the DR is running 6.5s to 6.9s, every single one. You're like, why? Because they play in the streets, because they climb trees, because they run in the sand. And then they also have their dad knocking on the door saying, get up, it's time to run some sand. And they don't have perfect technique. It's not about perfection. The body organizes, and the better the athlete, the better the organization. So the 2 tools, any idea what is the 2 tools that require literally no strength? It's all based on skill. What's that?
The mental part?
No, so the fielding tool requires really no physical strength. I mean, really, the stronger legs are, yeah, I'm going to move a little better. But if you could see a 110-pound Dominican or an American, well, and they don't really treat it like that. And in the Dominican, they're signing at like 16. You see kids in the Dominican at 140 pounds, soaking wet, weak, signing for $500,000. I see it all the time. That kid over there, I'm going, that little skinny dude. It's because the skill, his actions, his footwork, his glove actions, his reads, his range, his quickness, his exchange has nothing to do with how strong are you, son? How much can you squat? So he goes out and he throws the ball off the wall. And we were talking about this wall concept. I brought that back to America because I'm watching the kids for like 5 years. Every kid, I'm watching them for hours. I go, no one in America is doing this. Nobody. And why do they have the best hands, the best feet, and the best exchanges in the world? It's because of the wall. And if you go all around the island, every single kid is throwing the ball off the wall, and they all field exactly the same. It's crazy. You'll go to 4 hours to a little village way out in the mountains. You go, why does that kid field the same as the kid in Santo Domingo and the kid in Boca Chica? All over the place. They're all feeling the same. You know why? Because they all learn from the wall. They learn from high. And what does the wall teach you? Feet, hands, exchange, arm slots. Those are probably the 4 greatest components of being a master infielder. And they're doing it from the age of 6 till they're 14. Now, by the way, once they start getting 14, they don't do the wall anymore. It's very interesting. The reason is because they get to that age. And what happens is now they get into academies. Do academies really use walls like they did when they were kids? No, they don't. And when you see a Dominican hitter who hit caps his whole life, once he's 16, they're not in the pro academies in the DR hitting caps. So that little window of the highest number of reps you can get from like 6 to 14, it's timeless. There's no time limit. So you take these kids now, okay, so they're developing out the wall. They're developing a skill that requires no strength. Really, I mean, the stronger you are, it's going to benefit, but it's not the most important piece. It's like the smallest piece. To be a great shortstop, to have great hands, feet, exchange, you don't have to be strong. So you take these kids now, and they're all on their cell phones. They're not doing what they did. I'm telling you right now, in the last 3 years, no more. Wall ball, no more. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's unbelievable. I've been there for 15 years. The last 3 years, kids do not throw the ball off the wall anymore. You rarely see kids playing catch. All the kids in the DR now, in a lot of the areas, not all of them, but a lot of the areas now all have a nice glove, cleats, bat. 10 years ago, 1 bat for the whole team. Half of them didn't have shoes. Half of them didn't have a glove. Well, why do you think they had the best hands and feet? Because they're fielding ground balls with no shoes. Which endorses the highest level. If you're on the balls of your feet, go field ground balls with no shoes. What do you think is going to happen to your feet?
Yeah.
Well, now in this place where they're not developing, okay, because they have this cell phone. So going back to the tools, you have the fielding tool requires so little strength, and then the hit tool. If you want to be a master hitter, the hit tool. The master hitter learns to hit by hitting. He learns to hit by someone in the backyard trying to strike him out and then saying, hey, better pitch selection. Let's go, Johnny. And you're in the backyard just having a great time. Hey, keep your head down. Simple stuff. Keep your head down. Come on, stay balanced. And then I'm trying to strike you out. The master hitter, like Trent said, you could swing a PCB. You can swing a pipe. You can swing anything you want, a stick. You don't need a big bat like this, a 30-ounce, 33-inch wood bat. You don't. And by the way, the Dominican kids, this is what they swing when they get it, because when the stick wears out, you know what happens? Their cousin or their uncle comes back with a bat because he's playing for the Marlins or the Padres, and he leaves his bat in the house. It's 34, and you got a 10-year-old swinging a 34, 32-ouncer. And what do you think that promotes? Separation, right? Lower half engagement, because if you swing a heavy object, what do you got to swing with? Your legs. And you have to separate. So anyways, that's an interesting piece too. But the point is strength. Strength's a beautiful thing. But let me tell you something. The two most important tools, the fielding tool and the hit tool, it requires no strength. And Trent said, you can teach a 6-year-old the same as you teach a college guy, because what is right is right. And it's not rocket science. So the 6-year-old literally can do the same thing as a college or pro guy. We're not talking about the extravagant pro guys with leg kicks and dropping hands. We're not talking about all that. So we're talking about, you look at most pro hitters, look at most big league hitters. It's very simple. If you take 80% of a big league hitter, he does not have a leg kick, and he strides small, and his load is minimal, and he doesn't have too much swag here. Okay, that's the majority. And we're always watching the guys with the swag. It's so funny. We watch these guys that are hitting bombs that strike out 200 times, and we're trying to emulate. Are you kidding? What are we doing? But the two tools that require the least amount of strength are the most important. It's the hit tool, which you can rarely find, and then the defensive tool. But going back to strength now, how do you get strong legs? Go find a hill and run it. Jump. Do wall sits. It's the old school grassroots, blue collar farm boy development. And that's the concept of what Trent brought to me. He said, Nate, let's build it. You got stuff. I got stuff. Let's make it. And so I don't want anybody to feel overwhelmed. Man, I don't know all the techniques. You don't need to know the techniques. Know a little bit, okay? And let your kids enjoy what they're doing and get better, and it's going to come over time. But that athleticism, I'm telling you, is extremely important, because it's hard to be a great athlete if you're weak. It really is hard to repeat. So if you run your hill, you do your jumps, okay, and you do your wall sits, your lower half will change as a hitter, it'll change as a thrower, and it'll change as a defender. Just from doing that, if you can be consistent. And Trent put it all together. It's a whole package. And it's so simple. It's so beautiful. Very, very cool.
I love the simplicity of it. You know, I think we need to get back to that, because sometimes we're getting too complicated. I mean, you know, we're out there using complicated words. We're out there using complicated systems. You know, like you said, you know, kids can learn to throw from different angles when they're young. If they just do it, they'll figure it out. Question for you, and you could follow up on Nate's stuff, but I also want to ask you, if we go to either one of your training programs, whether it's a camp, whether it's a practice for a team, what's that look like? Take us inside a little bit, how that's organized a little bit, and how it develops into that training.
Okay, real quick, I'm going to nail Nate's in like 1 minute.
No, go. Hey, listen, guys, the time, I'm being honest, you know, I want to make sure of your time. I've got all the time in the world, so I don't want to take you further than what you need to.
Now, we love sharing. So, I mean, you know, so the big thing to me, if you go to our Twitter, you'll see, you know, numerous young people, even softball players, doing really what most people would consider high skill level drills. Well, you know, Nate just nailed it. It has nothing to do with how old you are. These people, these young girls have had a plan, and they've worked their plan. These young men, these young boys, you know, and it's amazing to watch. And there's a lot of them that can really do it well. So when you see it, you start to realize that the next thing is people, they like fancy, right? Everybody wants fancy. Yeah.
On that?
Sure.
Real quick.
Go ahead.
I think he's referring to a tweet. So a young lady, she's, I think, 10 years old, maybe 11, 12. She's a little Japanese girl. And she basically took all of our drills from the lockdown, and she made a video. And she sent it to us yesterday. She literally looked like a professional. She looked like she could play division baseball right now. It was unbelievable. She's doing all the quick feet drills. She's doing all the balance drills. She's doing all the throwing stuff. She's doing all the filling stuff, and she's doing it to a T. It's like unbelievable. And that's what happens if you just pay attention. And she's obviously a good athlete, but the more you do your quick feet stuff, the more you get stronger. It all starts to come into play. But the point he's saying is It's right there. It's unbelievable. She sent that tweet yesterday. I go, that girl looks like she's a Division I softball player right now, and she's 10 years old. And her video, it was like 2 minutes, and it was every 5 seconds was a new clip of her doing another piece of the workout stuff that we have on Twitter or from our workout program that she ordered. And it mind blowing. But when my nephew was 8 years old, I mean, in 8th grade, he had 5 full ride scholarship offers in 8th grade, and I'm not exaggerating. I don't think there's a player in the country that's been offered 5 full rides in 8th grade. And this is what happened. He moved like that little girl. We just worked on holding postures, right? And just working on our shuffle, just working on simple fundamentals. And we did them over and over. And he jumped rope every day. And he still does, jump ropes every day for like 5 minutes. Now, point is, 8th grade, they're going, why was he getting full ride scholarships when he weighed 98 pounds? It's because it looks right. They're going, wow. But what is right is simple. That's the beauty of it. And I've spent 30 years trying to find what is the complexity of being a master? The complexity is simplicity. And once you know what to keep simple, that's what we're talking about in this program. People don't know what to keep simple. They don't even know what's right. That's why you're chasing information. I've chased information for 30 years. I've chased the best. We've chased the best. We've chased information. Literally, that's been my mission. I'm chasing the information to find the right information. And what it comes down to is once you find it, you go, holy cow, this is the most simplistic. It's so simple. And so anybody can do it. Anybody.
That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. You know what I mean? If I'm a parent, I'm in. And listen, when we put this program together, because Nate and I put out more free content than just about anybody. We're about helping, but we've spent so much time building this product, and we tried to be very fair with the pricing because we understand exactly what's going on in our country right now. But we spent all this time creating a plan that's simple and doable, and it's not fancied up at all. It's blue collar. It's real. It works. You do it just like the girl, he was just talking about. It works, but it has to be, it has to be replicated. You got to stay, on the plan as much as possible. And the beauty of it is you don't need a fancy trainer. You don't need a coach. You don't need all this equipment. You don't need a lot of space. It's really simple. And we provided videos of every single element. So not only are they reading what they're supposed to be doing, but they can click on a link and it'll take them right through with it. And it wasn't rocket science to create this. What the hard part was, Pete, was it took a lot of time, organization, thought to keep it simple and make it practical. Simple, practical works. And if I'm a parent, that's what I'm looking for because I'm a parent. And, Nate and I had to figure this stuff out after 30 years. I had to train my own son. I had to train my teams for 28 years. What works, right, Pete? You just said earlier, certain things you did years ago, maybe you don't do quite the same now. We learn, we grow, we modify, we throw things out, we add things in. Technology has helped us figure things out. Why does somebody have to recreate the wheel themselves? So they go on the internet, there's a lot of good stuff, and they just start randomly finding stuff. It's like a 1,000-piece puzzle, and you're putting together 50 pieces when you should have all 1,000 pieces. And if somebody else told you this is the order that those 1,000 pieces need to go, you would finish that puzzle a lot faster. Key being you would finish the puzzle. Okay, if you're just randomly, blindly throwing in pieces, you may never finish the puzzle, which I consider the puzzle your potential. So, that's all. It's not a hard sell. We're not on here, but we want to help people. And, so we had to charge a little for this one because it took so much time to put it together.
Question here, Trent, on Facebook, Jason DeLonga, and I want you to just talk a little bit about the practice, as far as if you got 30 kids, kind of a little bit how you organize it and what's the important factors of that practice. Is it repetition and all that? Is it how many repetitions? But he asks here, how many reps of everything in a lockdown workout? What would that be in a lockdown when they're doing, say, backhands or they're doing whatever repetitions they have?
Sure. Well, okay, so a real practice with a team versus a lockdown practice. Basically, it's going to tell you what you need to do. How many reps is going to come down to where you're at. Like, that's a feel thing, okay? So you have a little journal yourself, and I did 2 minutes of, short hop backhands, or I did 30 seconds, or I did, because if you go too long, it's hard to stay efficient. A young person only has so much attention span. So what we try to do is we want them to stay focused. You'll notice that a lot of the drills that we provide are done in very short bursts. They're not done for 5, 10 minutes each. I mean, it's literally 30 seconds here, a minute there, 20 seconds here, and so there's a feel element to it. We didn't feel right going, Pete, you got to do this drill 10 reps and that's it. You know what I mean? Because everybody's different, and so a big leaguer could literally come in and do this same program, and a 6-year-old could come in and do this same program. What's the difference? The 6-year-old is probably only doing 2 or 3 of each element of the training program for that day because they can't do it all, and the big leaguer is doing it all, and it applies to them. So, I'd like to touch on the actual practice. Like, to me, throwing is the most neglected skill out there. If you can't throw in this game, you can't play defense, period. I mean, we've heard that. If you were on Twitter in the last year, you've heard many people say that, and it's true. Okay, you can't play defense if you can't throw. Fielding is half the skill. You got to throw it after that. So, I've coined the most important 20 minutes of practice. It's whether you use that terminology or not, but I've been doing talks for years at High School Baseball Coaches Association about a throwing program. Do you have to do the one I put together? No. Okay, you find out what works for your team. And here's how all practices work, talking to that dad. You put things in pieces. So let's use the throwing program as an example. It takes 20 minutes to do that program, 20, 25 minutes. Okay, but when you're teaching it, it could take an entire practice and you still wouldn't be able to teach the whole thing. Do you want to do that? I say no. No. Put in 2 drills this day. Let them master it over a week or 2. Add the next 2 in. Master it over a week or 2 until you eventually have the whole thing. Okay? To me, the most important thing about practices is you have a plan. When I organize a high school baseball practice every single day, okay, I get feedback from my assistant coaches, but a youth coach is probably not going to have to do that. So you got to sit down, and this is why you're the coach. What's the most important things that we have to be able to do? And then how are we going to work on it? And then how do we divide our hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, depending on your age, to get the best work in? And you have to be efficient. One person at the plate, the rest out in the field. Those days are over. That's no fun. That's no fun for anybody. Okay. You have stations, in my books, Winning Baseball, I talked about this 15 years ago. To me, it was logical. I'm a teacher. It's like teaching, if you're one of my dads and Nate's one of my dads, I say, Pete, these are the 2 offensive drills that I want you teaching the kids throughout this entire year. Here's the 2 defensive. You have 2 offensive, 2 defense. Nate, you have 2 offensive, you have 2 defense. Here's the video. Here's the Winning Baseball stuff. Learn it. And then when we go to practice, I have a station. So now we got 12 guys divided up in 3 stations working hitting. They're doing, 4 of the guys with me, 4 with Nate, 4 with Pete. We rotate around, 10 minutes a station. There's a 30-minute offensive practice right there. Flip it over for defense, 30 minutes, they're 10 minutes with each guy. That's 30 minutes there. We've done an hour practice so far. We've hit offensive skill work, defensive skill work. Now maybe we do some team stuff. What do we have to be able to do as a team based on the level we're at? Well, T-ballers, they have very little they have to be able to do. What are the rules in your league? They got to know that stuff. Make sure you're applying it in. And then, make sure if they're pitching, they got to get some practice, throwing. But here's the beauty of the most important 20 minutes of practice. What is pitching? Throwing, okay, accurately. So to me, once you learn how to throw, pitching is just a matter of deception and the rules of getting on a mound. So you can quickly, if you're a good thrower and an accurate thrower, you're probably going to throw strikes when you get on the bump. Okay, so it goes a little bit deeper than that. But, I think that parent that asked you that question hit the nail on the head. It's how do you do it, right? And that's what everybody wants to know. Like, how do you do it? When do you do it? And that's exactly why we created the blue collar lockdown. It's not just defense and it's not just infield play. I would argue that every one of the defensive skills, if you're a catcher, if you're an outfielder, or even a pitcher, you got to be able to do those things. And then we have an offensive element and, of course, the physical training as well. So, Nate, go ahead.
There's a
Go
strength
ahead, Nick.
element because the guy was talking about strength, so there's a
Yeah.
strength element
Strength
too. And it's all
element.
body
Yep.
weight stuff you can do at your house. So it covers really everything. So it's basically upper body strength, lower body strength, core strength, arm care, functional arm strength for throwers. It's everything. It's a full routine, complete player development from top to bottom. And we have a little mental game piece in there. I gave a talk at Major League Baseball Urban Youth Academy in Compton to about 100 of the top players at area code camp, and I spoke about the 6 tool for about 10 minutes. So we added that piece. There's enough nuggets in that to get people's minds working in a good direction, quality direction for development of the 6 tool. But there's everything there, and I just wanted to touch up because that's great insight, Trent. Thank you. I just think the other point was I just want to reiterate, the man was talking about strength. Well, it's not rocket science to get strong. You just have to be consistent. And body weight is the best way to get strong when you're young anyways. And if you can be diligent with body weight and you can be consistent with it, then you earn the right to lift weights. You don't even earn the right to lift weights until you're consistent with body. You're building a strong foundation through body weight strength training. And once you develop that foundation, when you start putting a little more mass on through lifting weights, your foundation is going to be much better anyway. So, tell your son, hey, he wants to do some curls or some tricep kickbacks or some bench or whatever he wants to do, some rows with weights. Hey, let's be diligent with our push-ups and pull-ups. If you can be diligent, what's going to happen? We're going to start giving you the luxury because you earn the right to lift weights. But in our program, we have all this stuff. And by the way, you don't even have to lift a weight to become a physical baseball player. You don't. If you run hills, if you jump, run hills and do body squats and wall sits, and but the part of the piece of the puzzle is you have to eat. You have to eat a lot, and you have to eat a lot of protein. Drink a lot of milk. Drink a half a gallon of milk a day. You'll be surprised. These little skinny kids, you're going, Dad, what's going on right now? They'll gain 5 to 10 pounds in like a month to 2 months just from drinking a half a gallon of milk. So it has to be important to them. If you eat like a bird and you do all your push-ups, you're just going to get skinnier, but you'll get, stronger, but you'll just get skinnier. So, eating is it's important. These 10-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds, eating's not a priority. Even for most high school guys, it's not a priority. When they go to college, it becomes a priority because everybody's making it a priority. Well, if you can make it a priority when you're young, you know what happens? You get strong. So it's all in there. We don't talk about diet, but I'll just simply from the diet. A lot of PBJs, a lot of bananas, right? A lot of protein, a lot of milk. Eat your vegetables. Just eat. It's time to eat. Let's go.
Absolutely. Guys, we're going to end it pretty soon here just because you guys have been really generous with your time. I just want to mention, a lot of times, I try to give a tip of the day once in a while, and I said, this is a great time, when you're at home to develop good habits. And what you're talking about, Nate, eating well, drinking plenty of water, doing your exercise. Because once you create those habits, you don't even think about it. They just kind of happen, and it happens all the time. Everything I do now is because I've created some good habits. I got some bad ones, too, that I got to break. But I want to end it, and I'm going to let you guys end on anything you like at the end to tell our audience in the U.S. and around the world because it goes everywhere. But I do want to get your opinion, both of yours. We hear this a lot. There's no doubt it's a game of failure. And you can turn that around a little bit in a better phrase. Players are going to fail. The idea is, how do you deal with it? And just some ideas for our coaches and players out there on when failure occurs, how do you deal with that aspect? And obviously you've got to train for it. Where do we start?
Go ahead, Nate. 6 tool stuff.
Okay, so when we think of this game, like you said, it's a failure game. It's very difficult. And if you don't have perspective, because you literally feel what you think, I'm going to feel what I think. So if I think that I just made a mistake, if I think that I can't hit, if I think that I'm a failure, if I think that I'm a loser, you know how I feel? I don't feel very good. And I'm not going to compete well because it's hard to compete when you feel like a loser. And the problem with this game is it makes you feel like a loser. How do you respond when you lose is the great defining, one of the greatest pieces of the 6 tool. And Martin Luther King Jr. said, it's not, he says, the measure of a man is how he responds, not in times of comfort and convenience. It's how he responds in times of uncomfort and inconvenience when things go wrong. That's the measure of a human being. Now, no one likes to hear that because when things go wrong, I'll tell you right now, it is the greatest challenge in the world for a human when you're frustrated to not be frustrated. And I want you to try it, Pete. And I'm going to tell everybody in our audience, when you're angry, I want you to immediately say, I'm not angry anymore, and don't be angry. When you're in a hurry, I want you to literally say, because you start feeling anxious. I'm in a hurry. I'm going to be late, right? So what happens? Everything speeds up. But that means you're out of control because the situation and circumstance is controlling your feeling. You're responding according to how I'm late. So what happens when you think you're late? It creates anxiety and tension. Well, what happens when you're on the field and you go, oh my gosh, I just walked, the bases loaded. The bases are loaded and I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. That becomes a major problem. I'm hitting and I'm down on the count. The guy has a good slider. I'm in trouble. I'm 0 for 2 and now I'm batting again. And the game's on the line. This is the whole game. It's how do you respond? Now, what happens is players, they don't have perspective. They don't understand what this game really is. Okay. And what happens is when you focus on the frustration or the anger or anything that's going on in your head that's bothering you, you cannot focus on the do. The do is what you want to do. And that's the only way to master anything. So I'm just going to talk really quick about the do. If I'm not focused on making this pitch, because I'm focused on the last pitch, I have to keep this pitch greater than all pitches, the next one and the last one, this pitch. And if I can practice it, but if you don't practice that, it's impossible to do because we're all humans. You literally have to practice releasing and refocusing and committing to this pitch. It's the same as a hitter. Because most hitters, when they're hitting, they have the last pitch that they missed, or they didn't hit, or they swung and missed, or they fouled off, or they didn't even swing at, still haunting their focus because it's in their mind. They can't release it and they can't refocus. So first and foremost is if your mind is not completely present, if it's not completely present, I'm talking 1 to 10, it has to be a 10. You can't be double-minded at all. So once you start understanding, see, perspective is like a process of understanding. So if you can teach a 10-year-old, and you can teach, because you can very simply, if you can teach them, okay, if you're not at a 10 focus on the do, you got no shot, period. It's not like this is negotiable. You know what happens when you're not 10 focused on hitting the ball hard? You know what happens? You don't hit it hard. You're out. And even when you have a 10, you get out. But your odds of hitting it hard are at the peak, at the top. So first and foremost, if your mind is not right, you cannot focus on the do. So when you're on the mound, you have to be totally committed with a 10 on making this pitch. And if you have any doubt in your mind, any doubt, I'm talking 1%, 1 degree, your body's in doubt. And when your body's in doubt, you know what happens? You cannot produce the result you want because this doubt creates doubt in my pitching delivery. It creates doubt in my swing. Right? So if my mind is not completely present and committed right now to this pitch, you know what happens? I can't execute it at my best. And if the opponent isn't very good, you can get away with having a marginal mental game. But wait till you start facing the real guys. You get exposed like this. And that's why separation amongst the elite is so difficult. To separate yourself amongst the elite, that's why you train to separate amongst the elite. You don't train to be the best on your high school team. You train at another level. So first and foremost, once they realize, they go, really, if I'm double-minded, if the mind is double-minded, the double-minded player accomplishes nothing. And double-minded is just having any ounce of your focus on something other than committed to what I'm doing right now. So first and foremost, they have to. And the second thing is in this game is so difficult. Okay. You're going to fail and you're going to struggle. And so when you think of a major league hitter, Mike Trout, what did he sign for? $400 million? Mike Trout every year is going to get out over 300 times. Now think about it, over 300 times. And he's going to strike out over 100. That's more than most humans have got out in their whole lifetime. And he's the greatest the game knows. And he's getting out more than you've ever got out in your life in 1 year. And he's making $400 million. He's making over 200,000 a game he's making. He's making over $1 million a week. Are you kidding me? And he gets out over 300. So when you start really gaining perspective, you know what happens, Pete, when you go to Alaska in the winter? It's cold, Pete. It's really cold. And if you go to Alaska going, what the heck's going on here? I got my board shorts and my flip-flops, and you're all angry. It's because you have no perspective. You don't understand. Well, once you create an understanding, when I go to Alaska in the winter, it's supposed to be cold. When you get out of the plane and it's cold, it has no effect on you. because your mind is right. You expect the cold. Well, when I expect the game, okay, to be difficult, and I expect to get out, and I expect to strike out because it's going to happen, what happens is it doesn't phase you because you feel what you think, and my confidence is a product of how I think. So changing a player's perspective is number one. It is absolutely number one to getting a player to be able to respond properly. And we talked about Martin Luther King, how you respond, not when comfort and convenience is there. It's the uncomfort, inconvenience when expectations aren't met. That's what defines you. But you could say all these cliches all you want, but until someone owns what I'm saying, you are going to fail until you redefine what success is. Springer talks about it. If you don't redefine success in your mind, you will always feel like a loser. Always. Because it is a game of losers. Favorite story is Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson he went to, what do we got? We got Big Jack, and we got, who is Branch Rickey? Come on, get your mind right. Okay, Branch Rickey brought Jackie to his office building, okay? And he said, Jack, we're looking for the right guy, okay? The scout, Sookforth, his name was Sookforth. Sookforth said, Branch goes, you got the right guy? Clyde Sookforth. Branch goes, you got the right guy? And he says, I don't know. He goes, he can hit, he can field, he can throw, he can run. You know what Branch said? He goes, I don't care. Can he take it? He goes, Can he take it? If you can't take it, you're playing the wrong game. Go play football, because football, you don't lose. Basketball, you rarely lose. Baseball, you lose every single day. And if you can't take it, if you don't have perspective, you got no shot, because you won't be able to respond properly because you don't understand the game you're in. And Branch Rickey's number one thing was not can you run, can you hit, can you field, can you throw? He asked Clyde, he said, Clyde, you brought me the guy who you think is going to break the barrier, who's the right guy. He says, I don't care about all those tools. I care, can you take it, Jack? And can you take this game? And most people can't. They're playing the wrong game, or they just don't understand. If we can change their perspective, you say when the game is over, you're supposed to go 0 for 2. Mike Trout goes 0 for 4 all the time, but when his mind is right, he goes 2 for 4 the next game, 3 for 4 the next game, 1 for 8 the next 2 games, but he always bounces back with consistency because it has no effect. Because when you go to Alaska in the winter, it's supposed to be cold. And when you step into the batter's box with a good guy on the mound, he's supposed to get you out. Did you know that? It's not like you got to change your swing, reinvent yourself, change your game plan, and that's what everybody's doing. Every coach is saying, it ain't working, Billy. You got to figure it out. No, you don't. Stay with who you are, know who you are, and continue to execute. And you know what happens? It works itself. But what happens is it creates tension. And when the mind becomes tense, the body cannot repeat what you repeated in the batting cage with your dad. You can't repeat what you did in the bullpen. So it's perspective. And the last thing I want to say is this. We practice our response all the time. So this is our response to be the rock. The rock. The rock is headstrong, they're heart strong, they're strong from the inside out. So we practice this literally daily. And I talked with my guys 2 days ago about it. We didn't practice it yesterday, but pretty daily we do. We practice our so what, don't care, just how we like it attitude. It's the NGUA. I'm big on acronyms. NGUA, the never give up attitude. SWDC, the so what, don't care. JHWLI, it's just how we like it attitude with a 12S double B. The 12S double B is I got a 12-second bounce back and I'm bulletproof. I got a 12-second bounce back and I'm bulletproof. I got the so what, don't care attitude. This is just how we like it. And when you start training your mind how to respond, because immediately what happens, your self-talk goes to negative. Immediately. Once you strike out, once you pop up, once you make an error, immediately, I suck, what's wrong, you're a loser. That's being a human. And what we do is we block out the negative, okay? That NST, the negative self-talk, and we fill it with the PST, the positive self-talk, and we say, I say SWDC, 12S double B, I got the so what, don't care, so what, don't care. I literally say that. We teach our guys, when you make an error, it's so what, don't care. Then you say, so what, now what? Because now what, I'm making a play. And you teach their mind how to respond. Because if you don't, your mind will continue into the next pitch and the next pitch, and you don't have a 12-second bounce back because you're still thinking. Because when your mind is quiet, what does it do? It focuses on the pain that you just experienced, and you can't get it out. You have to release and refocus. You have to. And we practice it. And if you don't practice it, you got no shot. Some guys are wired crazy. I mean, Trent, I don't know which players you play with. I know you had a handful of guys. You go, man, that guy is bulletproof. And he probably never practiced his mental game in his life. But that's like 1%. That's like a rare individual. The guy who throws 100 miles an hour, Nolan Ryan, rare. Okay. The guy who can get his mind right, like within one pitch, he's almost not human, literally.
I agree.
Love
You
it.
see,
Hey,
you see, you see why we're best friends, Pete.
absolutely. Not only that, but I see why you guys are at the top of your game because, we talk about all these skills, but mentally, yeah, I mean, you both have it very strong, man. And I know it's hard. Life in general brings us down. It's tough to keep it up all the time. That was fantastic. Trent, take us home on this. Finish it up for us.
Really just think that in practical application, like I tell my guys all the time, you know, it's so easy when things are going well. As a team, individually, you're feeling great about yourself. The team's feeling great about themselves. The true definition of a team, okay, this is just applying what Nate said, is how you handle failure, how you handle it. Okay. You can't be a leader if you don't handle failure well. If you handle failure well, doesn't mean you have to like it, but if you handle it well, when you start having success again, people are going to want to listen. They hate excuse makers. Okay? If you're the guy that comes back to the dugout every time you make out, oh, da, 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 nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. Failure is inherent in the game. Okay. And one of the hardest things to do is to go through struggles. And offensively, more than defensively, you're going to go through struggles. And that's what defines you. That's such a big part of the sixth tool because most of the best players in the country, when they're young, they don't have a lot of failure, relatively speaking. Okay. But when they finally meet up with the real deal and other people are as good or better than them, they find out real fast, that they are not what they thought they were, and they get put to the test. And to me, it's learning to grow, and learning to overcome adversity and being a leader. And that's all a part. So all these little things that Nate talked about, and if I'm a parent, I'm listening to that stuff over and over and over. If I'm a player, if I have a son, which I do, and I'm friends with Nate, and Tabor gets to hear, he gets, if I had the mindset that Nate talked about as a player, my odds of going higher than I did are so much more because I was a perfectionist and I beat myself up all the time and I didn't have the right perspective. Okay. I was in Alaska and I didn't expect it to be cold. I thought I could control the weather, so to speak, and it was controlling me, and it reduced my ability to succeed to a level, and you eventually eliminate yourself from the game. So you got to be, an unbelievable master of the mind and handling failure. And the only way that you do that is through practical application. And that when we have our infield camps, the thing that blew me away the very most about Nate of all the things is how he can literally apply the mental game, the sixth tool, everything we just talked about for the last 15 minutes into drills. Like it's practically implemented into the drill work and what we're doing. We don't just talk about it. Okay. We do talk about it, but we apply it, and they apply it the whole camp. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. And that's why Steve Springer, like a lot of people, when they talk about the mental side of hitting, they like think pie in the sky. You talk mental approach in infield play, pie in the sky. Bull, bull, bull. It's as real and tangible and important as anything that you can physically do. And it's the strongest that survive. So I'll leave the parents with that. I hope they'll give our stuff a look. TroskyRanch.com. You go to our Twitter accounts, kind of scroll through. You'll be able to find the links in there. Maybe you can put them up for the people. So we talked a lot about what's in there today.
Yeah, we'll put everything on the show notes. Don't worry, we'll have everything. Nate, go ahead. Last words, yours.
Yep.
I like the last words. Just on that note, if you would follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, all kinds of great stuff, you guys. We've dedicated our life. We both stepped away really from the higher levels of the game to give back. I mean, that's like Trent was saying, it is a choice. We have lots of offers to still be in professional baseball coaching in the collegiate levels, but when you're in that level, you're consumed with busyness. You're consumed with all that goes along with that process. So we've dedicated our lives to giving back, and you're gonna see a lot of that on our pages. So, please follow us. The Trosky Ranch is our new site where Trent and I are doing a lot of stuff together. The lockdown was the first thing you can purchase that. It's like half price. I mean, guys, it's cheaper than filling up your car with gas. I'm not kidding. It's unreal. And we also came out with a Footwork Mastery Series. Series 1 came out. It's just infield footwork. There's going to be 2 more series coming out in the next month. This lockdown program is just not something for this week or this month. It's a program that should be done. You can do it. It could be your summer program because you might say, hey, our high school coach has stuff for us, or we're busy during this time of the year, but so you can implement it at any time. The last thing I want to say is the mind is very interesting. And when you think something is not acceptable, when you say it's non-negotiable, what happens is there is no option. And what I tell these guys is there is no option, because if your mind is not right, your body will not produce the result that you want. You can't negotiate, and it's not your opinion. There's no opinion here. It's non-negotiable. If your mind is not right on the mound or in the box or on defense, okay, you're going to struggle, period. So it's non-negotiable. And I'll give you a super quick story. I've been with the area codes for 15 years. These are the best players in the country. We play for 1 week in Los Angeles, California. I had the opportunity to coach Nolan Arenado, Christian Yelich, Jock Peterson, Grant Cole, Garrett Cole, Giancarlo Stanton, Moustakas. I could just name the list. I've coached 70 major leaguers in 7 years. 70 major leaguers in 7 years. And the best guys in the game, like Arenado, Yelich, they were in my dugout. And I've had the opportunity to spend time with these guys when they were 18 years old, 17 and 18. I didn't tell them a lot because that's not the forum there. The area codes. The area codes is to evaluate players and coach them. So we're coaching them. They're on our Brewers team. And for 15 years, this is no joke, I've never seen one player, not one player. Now think of this scenario. There's 500 Major League scouts in the stands, and I'm not exaggerating. There's 500. Every Major League scout in the United States of America is in the stands. Directors, supervisors, cross-checkers, everybody. They're all there. Okay, there's 500 behind home plate watching the games. Okay. And then in your dugout, you have anywhere from 3 to 7 scouts. Okay. So you got this dugout filled with 3 to 7 scouts. You got 500 scouts watching the game, and you're playing with the best players in America that are, going into the draft, their senior year. Okay. So I got next to me a first rounder, a fifth rounder, a third rounder, a second rounder. Okay. I got 500 scouts. Okay. I haven't seen one guy in 15 years, not one, throw his helmet. Not one guy throw his helmet. Not one guy throw his bat. Not one guy whine and complain. I've never seen it in 15 years. Why?
Wow.
How come? It's because it's non-negotiable. It's unacceptable. So when you strike out with the bases loaded, you walk over and you put your bat down and you sit down, you stand up, get some water, and you cheer your teammate on. Because if you're small mentally, if you lose your attitude, if you lose your mind, if you whine, you complain, you make excuses, you know what happens? You're immediately written off by every scout there. Done. The Rock, I'll give him a 20 on a 20/80 scale. Okay. Your mental makeup, you're being evaluated. So what happens is nobody has a bad attitude. Nobody. It's not even negotiable. 15 years, not one bad attitude. Why do guys have bad attitudes on the Little League field, in the high school field? You know why? Because it's acceptable. So when you set a standard and you tell these players it is absolutely non-negotiable, if your mind is not right, okay, it is impossible. It's like gravity. You jump, you fall down, and it hurts. Okay, it's gravity. It's the law. It's the law of the mind. It's the law of attraction. It's the law. If your mind isn't right, you got no chance. You got no chance. So get your mind right. So once players start going, oh, wow, now I get it. And now it's non-negotiable, because if a scout sees me and I'm small and I don't have a 12-second bounce back, you know what happens? Game over. They change. It's over. And when they strike out, you know what happens? The response is totally different. And they're able to get to the next pitch because they don't hold on to it. And it's all a matter of perspective. Non-negotiable, guys, get your mind right. Okay, get it right. 12-second bounce back. And it's pretty cool. I mean,
love it.
Trent, you see it around your house with your kids. You say, this is non-negotiable. What happens? They just stop doing it. When you set a standard, you put the bar, it's over.
If you tolerate mediocrity,
that's what no one sets the standard. People don't set the standard on the mental game because they don't even know what to set. So they don't say nothing. They just let you do whatever you want. They don't realize you're not completely present on this pitch with a 10. You got no shot. You got no shot. It's a 10 or nothing. I didn't say you have to throw the ball with gas and you have to hit the ball over fences. No, get your mind. You got a shot. And that's why Pete Rose is the greatest of all time. His mind was right when he was in the box. His mind was right. No tools, the best hitter that's ever walked the face of the earth, because his mind was right and his body follows his mind. Get your mind right.
All right.
I got nothing else to say.
I'm going to let Nate finish it like that. Listen, guys, first of all, we told our audience all over social media and even on the phone and on emails that this was going to be explosive. There's going to be so much learning, no doubt about it, far beyond what we thought. I cannot thank you enough. And I can tell you this might be the first ever podcast, and I didn't want to do it, but you guys have a time schedule too, that I've had to actually say that this is going to be the end of the podcast, because you guys would have kept going and I would have kept listening. And that's when you know that people are genuine. You can tell you're genuine. You can tell you know what you're talking about. Obviously, you got passion for what you do. We love that you're in the game. You're already at the highest level, and people are following you everywhere. We're going to place things on the show notes. We'll promote everything because we believe in what you do. First of all, Nate, it was your first time. I can't thank you enough for being on the show. That was fantastic. You did a great job, and wish you the best, and God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you.
And Trent, if it wasn't for you, I got to say it. I mean, we're not going to have Nate on the show. So I want to thank you for bringing him in on the show, and for you being on for the second time. I can't thank you enough. So God bless you. And anything I can do to help you, let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us, Pete.
All right, folks, that is Trent. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for what you do.
I'm thanking you. I'm thanking you because, again, you guys are making me better, not only as a person and what I'm learning, but you're making me better. You're making the show better by getting it out there, because people are going to follow it also. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Hey, everybody, that is Trent Mongero, Nate Trosky. Wait.
One more thing.
Throw another one in there.
One more thing. We're going to ask them. The challenge is to be a great learner. Everything they just heard today has no value 2 days from now unless they apply it to their life. It has no value. And the only way to apply it is to be a great learner. So this is the challenge. What they felt was important, if they did not write it down, it'll be forgotten. I guarantee in 2 days, in 1 week, they'll never, ever remember 99% of what we spoke about. So the challenge for there's no age limit, parents. Yeah, I'm 40. I don't need to write it down. Yes, you do need to write it down. And if you're 50, you need to write it down. And if you're 10, you need to write it down. You all need to write it down. Then you need to reread it and you need to reflect it. So the challenge, so that's stage one. You wrote it down, but the question is in 2 days from now, will you read it? And if you don't read it, it's still going to be forgotten. And then you should say it too. Teach it to someone. Now, this is our challenge for you. We're going to ask you to your best nugget that you took from today. If you will, tag us on Twitter. Okay, tag us. Say, thank you for the opportunity, whatever you want to say, and say, Trent, when you said this, it made a significant impact because my son is 12 and he knows nothing of what to do, and you gave him some light. Thank you. Nate, this is anything, okay? Show us that you're a great learner. This helps us be great learners because we're going to learn what has impact to our listeners, because that's the only thing that matters anyways. It doesn't matter if Trent thinks his information is good and I do too. It makes no difference because it's the receiving end is what matters. So we care what you're thinking and we want to hear from you. So please send us a tweet. Now I'm gonna do this, Trent. I'm thinking let's say the first 25 people, okay, we're gonna give them a wristband. And we have these wristbands. We got all kinds of mental game stuff. We're either going to give you a mental game wristband. This one is very simple. It's Get Your Mind Right. Okay. And it has about 90 acronyms inside about how to get your mind right. Okay. So it's Get Your Mind Right, 95.5. Okay. We'll either send you a wristband. Okay. Or we're going to send you a mental game card, or if Trent has a nice little secret, okay, that he wants to give, but we're going to give the first 25. Okay. How about the first? Yeah. We'll go the first 25. Okay. But what we need your address. Okay, so Trent, how do they do that? Do they just put, hey, this is what I learned today, and then put my address at the bottom, or like, what do they do?
We'll follow them. When they put that, they need to make sure they put Pete's show on there. He can tell them, and so we know that it's coming from this particular podcast. And then if we follow that person back, we can send them a direct message, and they can send us a direct message.
And I'll get it started. I'll tag right away what I learned, was extremely important, and I'll get the ball rolling.
Okay, perfect. You're right.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome, guys. First of all, don't hang up. Remember, first of all, that is Trent Mongero, Nate Trosky. I want to thank both of them for being on the show today. Thank you to our producer, Brian Kroc, Lineup Media Group, and also the most special thank you of all our listeners in the U.S. and around the world. Yes, we're going to get the wristband. I'm going to tag first. Thanks to all our listeners in the U.S. and around the world for listening to a special show here of Baseball Outside the Box, the show that loves to interview baseball's best coaching minds who love the challenges.
Pete.
Well, yes.
Pete, new challenge. Trent has the biggest arms. You got to get to the gym. Let's go.
Yeah, mine's not there. I'm working on it.
Oh, that's pretty good. Pretty good, baby.
And folks, don't forget to have fun. God bless y'all. I'm Pete Caliendo, your host, Baseball Outside the Box. We'll see you on the next show tomorrow, 1 o'clock, 11 o'clock Central. Sean Larkin. No, we have Bill Frado, junior college World Series champion. We'll have him on the show tomorrow. Thanks, folks, for joining. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.